Hey there, today I'm starting a two-part video series on challenge lock keys and key pins. This is the first video. We're going to be cutting this key by hand, and then in the second video we'll come back and make the key pins from scratch to match. So the tools we're going to be using is obviously blank key, core to test. This is a key gauge. This is so you file your notch down, and then you can test the gap here and find out when you're at the right cut. And then a couple of files. This is the most important one. I don't actually remember exactly which file this is. It's made by Grobet, and it's a round file. I'm not sure if it's a number 4 or number 6, something like that. You can also use a Pippin file. This one works pretty well for me. And then we've got just a needle file, which I might need a little bit of just for fine-tuning. And then finally, I'm going to be using this Dremel attachment. I think this is the number 425. It's an emery wheel. This is nice because it can remove and polish at the same time because brass is soft enough. We'll be using that at the finish for fine-tuning. So to begin with, we need to put some marks on the blade of the key where we're going to start our filing. You can, what I used to do a lot in the past is just write on here with a Sharpie and then come in with something sharp like an ice pick or something and make some scratches, and then you can see where to begin your filing. But recently I made this little tool. It just saves me a little bit of time. So to begin, what you want to do is it's quite important that you want to pinch the key in all the way to make sure it's fully inserted before you start making your marks. I'm sure everybody's had the experience of sticking your key in a front door and it doesn't quite work and you have to pull it out a little bit and wiggle it, and that'll happen if the key was not fully inserted in the key copying machine. Most likely is what people are using. Rambling already. Okay, so we can see, if that's going to focus, we've got a couple nice regularly spaced marks where we're going to start filing. And the bitting I've selected for this is 072920. It's going to be for a challenge lock. So first we're going to start with the 0. Oh, we're done. Okay, and actually what I like to do before I really get going is just widen these scratches a little bit. Makes it a little easier to see what I'm doing. And once they're started, and there's one here on the end too, but that's a 0, so we're not going to touch it. Once they're started, I just kind of check again to make sure that the spacing is proper. It looks like it's off just a little bit. That's okay. So first step is to cut this one down to a 7, which will be pretty deep. You want to be careful while filing down that as you're widening the gap that you don't encroach on the adjacent cut. So that's why I made those marks, so I can see that as long as I don't touch this part, the 0 is still going to work. And then the next step would be to come in. I'm going with Schlage key depths. So we've got 6, almost a 7. Oops, except I'm holding it upside down. Trying to do this whole thing upside down. Hope it's not too disorienting. 6, we're very close to a 7 here. So just a little bit more, something like that maybe. Where'd my Schlage? There it is. Ooh, a little bit more. There, we got a 7. And so I'll speed this video up and do the rest of the cuts, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more. Okay, so here's the key. We can see that sure doesn't look like a key you're used to seeing, and that's because we need to smooth out these ramps between the cuts. If we were to try and use it in this current state, it actually wouldn't operate. It would open, but you wouldn't be able to get the key. The key would just get stuck in the lock. So we can see those key pins fit nicely. And if we were to insert this in a lock with some loaded drivers, we need a little bit of tweaking, but it works. The problem is you can't get the dang key out. So what we're going to do is come in with, oops, lost a driver there, spun it last second. We're going to come in with a Dremel and clean these up a little bit. I'm going to actually pause the video real quick and I'll be right back. Okay, so now it's time to clean up these ramp angles between the cuts. So what we're going to be doing is removing, we're not going to be touching the low points of each of the cuts because that's where the key pin is actually resting. That's the important part of the information, or that's the important information on the lock is this depth here. But everything in between we can remove. So we're going to take that little tooth off, and then similarly all the way down. And I like this emery wheel because it works, it cuts and it polishes all at the same time. Okay, so that's looking a little better. I also came along the edges just to break off any burrs, and this should work a little bit better. Go ahead and load this up again. Oop, what are we doing here? Okay, I don't have, actually I do have. Let's screw this on real quick just to lower the stakes. Okay, so now the key just slides in and out beautifully. There's a little bit of tweaking here, but that's because we're just using off-the-shelf key pins, and I filed this really quickly. In part 2 of this video, we're going to make some key pins from scratch in order to fit this perfectly. Okay, I'll see you then.